Hi guys, I'm Katrina Krize. I am your wrestler, referee, ring announcer, and your attempted to be jack of many trades in the wrestling business, from putting up the ring to tearing it down to helping with production, ring crew, anything I can get my hands on. Because as you know, I just love this business. So
Awesome. Thank you for being with us here. Appreciate you. I know for Keith's episode we had, the whole squad was on. You came in towards the end there, but I know they had to wrap it up. So you're flying solo. And so let's just jump right into this. Thank you for being with us. And give me your worst road story.
So my worst story. I can answer this with two stories. So more generally speaking, a lot of people don't realize when I would do OVW tapings last year, I would be doing 14-hour trips all in one day. So I would get up, get ready, hit the road, drive 7.5 hours, do OVW, get back in the car, drive 7.5 hours. I'd probably get home around like 6:30, and then I'd have to be up for my shoot job at like ready to go at my shoot job by 8:30. So worst road stories as far as like my own, like putting my body through it as far as being on the road. That's like my general, because I don't think people really know about that part of the sacrifice. Like they see us sacrificing our bodies in the ring, but they don't think about the sacrifice of our time, our energy, of the sacrifices we make to be on the road and to try to get that next opportunity to get to the big stages that we would want to get to. So that is my general. Naturally, my other story, which before I get into that, I will confirm what Keith said in his episode. Jazz is, I love trips with her because they're funny and there's stories and there's laughter. She's terrifying to ride with. If she is driving, it is mildly concerning. And I say that from the most loving, that is my tag partner, I would fight for her sort of way. Jazz is just, there's nothing like waking up at 4 a.m. to Jasmine speeding down the highway in my car and being like, no, I'm just going to turn over and pretend that's not happening. So that's just side commentary to completely validate everything that Keith said. But one of my funny stories slash rough stories of being on the road is that the love of my life, I love traveling with him, Mr. Cooper Housley, but he has a lead foot. And I am like this goes to the ref in me, I'm a very rule following kind of person, and I hate speeding. I'm driving Miss Daisy. We're going tops 5 over the speed limit. We have to account for every stop to make sure we get there exactly on time. My husband is not that man. So I believe we were either engaged by this point or shortly before he got engaged when we were dating. We were on the way to a show in North Carolina, HWA, and he loves to use that lead foot of his. And I told him when we were on the way, I was like, I'm going to take like a nap after this show. We've had a really long day. I'm exhausted. Like, just wake me up when we get home. I think it was like a 3.5 hour trip. It wasn't anything crazy. It was something we were doing often at the time. And I was like, if you please do not speed, I just have a feeling you're going to get a ticket. And he was like, I got it, honey. And I was like, okay. So I go to sleep, and I wake up to him tapping me going, hey, where's the license and registration? And I wake up with blue lights in the background, and I'm like, you do not want to wake up to blue lights in the background. You just don't, for so many reasons. A, wrestling is so expensive, and we don't talk enough about that. And when you see blue lights in the background, that's like money that could have gone to gear and other things. Also, it's just like not fun to see blue lights in your rearview mirror in any situation that's ever existed in life. So my worst road story would be waking up to blue lights. But that's like my general spiel of worst generally, and then I will never forget to like waking up to that, because the good kid in me is like, oh my God, someone's going to call my mom. Like that sort of like anxiety of that kid. Like I'm that kid.
That's
So
awesome.
that's the worst.
No, I'm with you. I get that. Yeah, no, that's not bad. Yeah, I've definitely heard some wild ones. Like I want to say it was Marcus Cross, like car accident stuff like that. So yeah,
Um,
if you're just getting blue lights, that I mean that does suck because money out the pocket. But
so we did get in a car accident on our way to a show one time,
oh,
like a year or two ago. We were on the way to a show. We were 20 minutes away, and Cooper went to go turn, and I guess like something didn't register about like the person that was coming forward. He thought he had enough time, and we ended up getting in a wreck on the way to the show. And before I called the cops, before I called my parents, his parents, anybody, I called the promoter, which is such a wrestling thing to do. But like even with like the baby that we're currently pregnant with, side story, I'm the kind of person with ADHD who tells like 3 stories in a story, so I do apologize in advance. Side story, to that point, which is like very wrestling, when we found out that we were pregnant with our daughter, the first person I was supposed to referee the next day, and the first person we called was our trainer Bob because he also like helps handle some of our bookings. So before our parents knew, before anybody knew, we called Bob because we were like, "Hey, I can't be there tomorrow. I hope Dalen's with you to referee because your girl pregnant. I can't be in the ring like that." So yeah, we live that wrestler life for sure.
that is so funny. Did you guys still make the show after
We
the wreck?
didn't. We were going to try, because like of course we were. But no, we did not. We called him and we were like, "Hey, I don't think it's gonna work. No. We are 20 minutes away, but we have to worry about our drive back because we're already like in I think we were in Union by that point. And so I was like, we gotta figure out how in the world we're getting home, like and all that. So I apologize. I hate canceling bookings. Like I've canceled very, very rarely because I'm a big like Bob Keller who trained me. He's super big on you don't cancel. And I'm also big on like being a woman of my word. So if I say I'm gonna be there, it has to be like something serious, even if it's the smallest show on the planet. Because if I'm giving my word that I'm gonna be there, I do my darndest to make sure I'm there. And it has to be something like astronomically unreasonable that I can't get there for me not to go.
Gotcha. No, understood. Understood. That makes sense. So, yeah, no, that's very stand up. All right. So now that we're down in the dumps, let's go with a good road story. So, what would be your best road story?
Um, Generally speaking, I love traveling with people. If you're a Keller kid, you're in Bob's van traveling from West Virginia to Georgia to everywhere up in between with the Keller clan, and so I love traveling with other people. The story in particular, I actually wasn't with Bob and traveling with him or the OG squad at the time. For this particular, I was on the way to OVW for one of the first times, and I went with Taylor Z. She's Taylor Zebin. She's a photographer. Some people may or may not know her, but she's around a lot of these like local shows and stuff, especially in North and South Carolina, and sometimes even Georgia. But she was traveling with me because she had done pictures and photography for OVW for a while, and she was like, "I haven't been in forever. Let's go together." So normally I get pretty tired, but I can stay awake if I'm talking to somebody. So her and I were like talking like talking back and forth like until 4 in the morning. And I thought I would be exhausted by then, but her and I just chatting really kept me awake. And then I was going the speed limit because, of course, I was driving Miss Daisy, rule follower. And of course, because apparently every theme of my story is that there's blue lights in the background, a cop pulls me over. I start doing the good kid thing of like, okay, they're not pulling me for speeding. Like I was going 5 over, but I really, like most people are going way faster. That like I'm doing the whole Rolodex of like, what could he be pulling me over for? And I have this really fun habit of putting my foot in my mouth when I am nervous and I don't know what to say. So Taylor's laughing and she was like, "Oh my God, why? Of course you got pulled over at 4 a.m." I was like, "It probably is because we have like South Carolina license plates. It's 4 in the morning. We're on this vacant road in this like random place on the way to OVW. So like I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine." So he comes up to the window. I have like, I've considered getting my doctorate and doing work with concussions because I currently have my master's. and I had one of the research books about concussions in my dashboard. So in panic, when he comes up, rolls down the window, gets my information, I go to pull stuff out. As I'm getting it, I'm like, I just need you to know I am a good kid and I have stuff for my dissertation in the dashboard. So I promise that I am not the kind of kid who would do anything suspicious. And I hand him our stuff and he just kind of looks at me and can tell I'm uncomfortable and goes back to like just run everything and make sure we're not doing anything shady. Taylor Zebin is crying, laughing, and was like, yes, that's the way that you make sure people know that you're not doing anything shady. You directly say the words, I'm a good kid. I would never do anything shady. While pointing to a doctorate research book that you happen to have in the like dashboard of your car. She was like, Gail, you were just the most awkward person I've ever met in my life, but like in the funniest way. And I always think about that story. Even like after that, going up to OVW, of course we got let off just fine and everything was good. But he was just checking and we told him we were on the way to OVW and he was super excited and hyped about it. He was like, oh, I loved wrestling growing up. And everything was fine. But I always like to think of that story because it was one of those moments where it is one of those like goofy road stories that long after I've retired from the business, I'll remember as like, man, like being on the road was like a fun time. I really enjoyed like those little goofy moments that you wouldn't get in any other experience of like sport other than wrestling.
No, totally. No, I loved it. I mean, I was laughing the whole time. So yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, man. That's great. So, all right. So we're going to move on to some questions. The first one being, when you travel, what's your go-to place to eat?
Oh, I was fully Team Keith on this one. So I love Sheets. I'd never had Sheets even in traveling because I traveled a little bit before wrestling, but obviously wrestling takes that to a whole new level. And traveling with Bob Keller is a big Sheets guy. So it was the first time I tried it. And so now anytime Cooper and I are on the road, there are two places we're going to stop. It's either going to be a Sheets or a Buc-ee's. Absolutely. We love Buc-ee's in this house. Just love it. So it's either going to be Sheets or Buc-ee's, depending on the night, depending on how we're feeling, and depending on what's close by and where we're going. So yes, I will forever stay in those two places. We love Buc-ee's, we love Sheets.
Gotcha. So Buc-ee's, Sheets, and the Waffle House are some of the three go-tos
Yes.
we hear all the time.
Yes, Waffle House is definitely, but it's to Keith's point from his interview where he says with that like wrestling life, you have to think about what's open like super late at night. And so most of the time, if we're just getting it and we're just like, please, please let me go home, it's like gonna be Sheets or Buc-ee's. But if we're trying to like create those road stories, if we're trying to like enjoy each other's company after a show, talk about something that happened, whatever, a lot of times it's gonna be Waffle House.
Yeah, good sit down and get some
Yeah.
good food. I'm with that. All right. So the next one's a two-part question. So who was your first favorite wrestler and who is your favorite wrestler now?
Oh gosh. I'm definitely gonna I really am a part of the OG squad. So me and Keith are very one and the same in that I have like 45 answers to this question. So I am actually with you in the sense that my first exposure to wrestlers, wrestling, any of it was Sting. My love for wrestling will always start with him. Because there are pictures of, I posted about it whenever he had his retirement match a little bit, but it was an uncle of mine who actually was never in the business, but was a huge wrestling fan, super big on like supporting wrestlers and how hard the business is and all that stuff. There are pictures of him when I was a baby, holding me, watching WCW, watching Sting. So Crow Sting was like, from as early as I can remember wrestling, that is like my hero. Since I've been in the business, I've really enjoyed going back and watching Surfer Sting and had a whole new appreciation for that. But there's not like a time in Sting's career where I'm just like, wow, okay, it's Sting. Like I loved his work with TNA and Joker Sting, and even to his own admission, like he's most proud of a lot of that work that he did, which I'm sure you know, being a big fan of his as well. And I just, being in the business has given me a whole new appreciation for him in a different way. One of the reasons you'll see me do splashes in my matches, they are not nearly as good as his or his son's, because from that retirement match, his son got like air. But I do splashes because it is like a little something to like nod to Sting in my matches. So when you see me do a splash, it's because of him that I do it. As far as like, that's from when I was little. And then getting into wrestling and deciding like, I probably decided I was going to do wrestling. I remember the definitive moment is when I was in 6th grade at a vintage show. And from that moment on, the people I kind of looked to in wrestling who really made me want to be like, okay, I'm getting into this, like I'm doing this, are two people might expect. One, they wouldn't. Edge, I love Adam. I think he is so talented and phenomenal at what he does. I love his heel work. I love the goofy stuff he did with Christian. I think that Edge is so phenomenally talented. I've been blessed enough to be able to learn and be mentored by Jessica Carr, kind of behind the scenes as a referee, and work with a lot of really talented referees who are just amazing, and I'm super thankful for that. But I bring up her in this situation because she is a big proponent of how amazing and down to earth and kind he is behind closed doors. And those are the wrestlers that I really want to admire and look up to. And so that further propels him in that status for me. Lita, because Lita wasn't the pretty girl. I say this a lot and I'm not knocking it. Everybody has their place in this business. I get so tired of the edgy girl with colorful hair or the like or the dark makeup. I get tired of the like pretty Barbie girl, and it feels like a lot of times I say like Becky Bade or like Malibu Barbie are the two versions of girls you get in wrestling a lot. And that's not to knock anybody's place. That's just you see it so much. And for me growing up, especially when you had like Trish Stratus and Sable and a lot of those women, to see Lita was like, oh, you can be cool and like edgy and do something different. And I always remember her in that way. And so she made me want to be a wrestler in the way that I didn't have to fit this particular mold to want to do this. And then another one for me growing up was Sensational Sherry, which a lot of people don't expect. I love that Sherry had a reputation for screaming and getting in the boy's face, and she wasn't afraid to do the same thing that the guys did. Her personality was larger than life when she was in the ring. The feud that she did with Moolah, I love Sherry, and a lot of the like bombastic, loud heel stuff. I've gotten to do a lot of face stuff, and I'm thankful for that because it helps me be able to be a referee at one show and a wrestler at another and all those things. But I really think because I try really hard to be a straight laced good person, that being a heel would be so fun. And it's just not something I've gotten to do yet. And that's totally okay. But Sherry is one of those that I look to for inspiration on. If that moment comes for me, I'm going all in. But as far as current wrestlers, he's not really wrestling now, but to me, he's still in the business, so it still counts. Is Santino Marella. Similar to Keith, I love a lot of times people will say, like, I don't want to be the Marella of wrestling. Santino Marella is more remembered for the comedy stuff and the goofy stuff that he did in the ring and the entertainment value he brought in a different way because he couldn't be John Cena or Randy Orton. And he is the one who made me feel confident and comfortable to be like, I can take the like part of me that wants to be goofy and funny and be that for women's wrestling. Because a lot of women's wrestlers, because women have had to fight so hard in wrestling, don't want to not be taken seriously. And for me, I very much part of my love for the OG squad is like we can be goofy and funny and we can just have fun in wrestling and not have to take it too seriously, but also know when to turn it on and off. And Santino is that for me. He can go when he needs to go, but he's super entertaining. He's super funny and he's not afraid to make it goofy. And so even with TNA, when I see him come out for promos, I get so excited. As far as like wrestling talent too, in regards to TNA as well, I really love Joe Hendry. His songs are just so catchy, and it's just like I said, he can be serious, but it's also like under this undertone of like funny, goofy. And I love that's the part of wrestling that I love, the goofy, funny, um, like niche stuff where you can turn it on and off, but like it's just people truly loving and goofing around in this sport while still loving it and taking it seriously when it's time to do so. And I love that. That's the wrestling that inspires me personally.
No, that's so awesome. No, so like one, yes, I want to see Katrina heel. I think that would be so amazing, especially if you're going to channel Sherry to do it. That
Yes.
would be off the charts. Like,
Be
I
fantastic.
couldn't even, yeah. And then Santino is one of those guys that it doesn't matter how many times I've seen one of his clips, I will laugh as hard as I did the first time every
Absolutely.
time. Yeah. He is someone that I'm hoping to land on here one day. Like he was one of the people that I thought about just of how like how entertaining he was to me on TV.
Yeah.
I feel an interview like this would be off the chain. Like I would probably be on mute unless I'm asking him the question because I'm gonna be cackling in the background.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh
Never
yeah.
get over the promo where he calls him John Cena. So whenever I hear John Cena's name, there is like a little goblin voice in the back of my head that says John Cena instead of John Cena, and it will forever make me laugh. Like there's not a time that's not funny.
Oh yeah. No, I'm with you. Every time he did that to so many people, right? He would butcher their name, and it was just great every time.
Yes.
I was hoping that one of those would stick for somebody one time. Like he would say it, and that's it. That would be their name going forward.
Yes. One of these days, I hope it happens in TNA. That would bring me so much joy,
It would
honestly.
be amazing. All right. So the next one of my favorites is do you have a Ricky Morton story?
Okay, so all my Ricky Morton stories are him being very sweet because I'm a woman. So I think one of the first time I ever got to interact with him, I had just started refereeing. I debuted as a ref. I was still training to be a wrestler, and it was at a show in West Virginia, and uh, my mom is a huge Rock and Roll Express fan. That's like the wrestling that she grew up watching. And I introduced myself and was talking to him. And I was like, yeah, my mom is a huge fan of the Rock and Roll Express, and specifically you. And he'd been like signing pictures and stuff, and like charging people for it or whatever. And he gave me a free picture for my mom and wrote her like a personal message and was like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, tell your mom thank you for the support. And like that was like my first interaction with him on the road since being in the business. And it just, I don't know, it gave me like oh, Ricky. And then I was at RWA, and I went to go, I want to say I was still refereeing at the time before I had switched over to wrestling for them. And I went to go look at something in the locker room about the order of the matches to make sure I knew when I was supposed to go out and all that good stuff. And I saw Ricky, and Ricky goes, "I'm sorry, darling. I'm not trying to be rude at all. I just, I really, I have to change, and I don't want to do that in front of you because you're a lady." And I was like, "Thank you so much. Okay, I'll skedaddle. Thank you so much." So all the interactions I've had with him are not the funny, goofy stories that people have. It's just him being like a very sweet, wholesome person. So those are the interactions that I've had with him, other than just like casual conversation at like AML and things like that here or there. But
I
it's
got
always
you.
him being a sweetheart.
No, well, I mean, like we use the word national treasure when we talk about Ricky for a reason. Same like what we do
Absolutely.
with George. Like those guys are just awesome, and
Yes.
they treat everyone. Everyone has a different interaction. So
Yep.
I get that. It was kind of like when I was talking to Samantha Starr, since Samantha and Baby Doll, right, and Ricky
Yeah.
and Baby Doll go way back. So like a lot of the times he would the only way he would poke fun at Samantha was to say, I was with your mom last night,
Oh my
and
god.
and you just take the double entendre with you, right? So yeah, so
That sounds very on brand for Ricky Morton.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, I love it. I love it. No, that's great. So like I just mentioned George. So our next question is, do you have a George South story? Which I'm sure you have several, being that we're all AML family.
Um, oh gosh, on a personal level, I've been more outspoken recently about like my faith, and not feeling like I want to be more intentional about not hiding that. And you have men like Lodi and George who are very outspoken about their faith. So, from a faith standpoint, there are so many stories that I can name of George just not only like being kind to me through faith and just like being almost like a mentor, but also just watching how he is kind and loving in a very like Christ-like way. I have such a heart for George South, if you cannot tell. I love that man dearly. He is definitely a national treasure. But my first ever interaction with meeting him, I was so excited because I heard all these stories about George. And so early on in refereeing, I got asked to help George for a some people get offended when you say micro wrestling, midget wrestling. Midget wrestlers get really mad when you don't call them midget wrestlers. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but they get very angry. So I was asked to referee a midget wrestling show, and I was like, of course, like what would be better than that? And even better, George was running the show. Like he was helping book everything and get everything straight. And I was like, this is a recipe for something good. And so I walked in and I was talking to George, and Bob Keller introduced me because he was the one who kind of got set up through for me to referee, because him and George are good buddies and have been on the road with each other for a long time. And so Bob, uh, I walk in and Bob goes, all right, George, this is one of my trainees. Her name's Katrina. And he was like, oh, hey, baby, it's so nice to meet you. You ready to referee my show tonight? And I was like, yeah, George, I'm super, super excited about it. It's so nice to meet you. I've heard so many good things. And he's like, well, of course you have. And he proceeded to then spend the next 30 minutes just going on the sweetest, yet longest, yet most passionate, mildly aggressive tangent about so many things about the psychology of wrestling and wrestlers, including micro wrestlers, being goofs and not wanting to uh, like approach the business in the way that it used to be approached and respect the business that was built before us. And I'll never forget, he looked at me and goes, I didn't get into wrestling because I want to think, okay? And that has stuck with me so often. So sometimes people will say something to me, and common sense isn't, I'm very academically smart, but common sense is not always common to everybody. And I can definitely be that. And so if someone says something to me, I'll be like, well, I didn't get in the wrestling business because I want to think, okay? And so like that's my first interaction, but like so classic George story of meeting George South.
Oh, that is amazing. And yeah, like I was dying when you said the goose thing, because how many times have I heard George South say that like on a
Yes,
regular basis, right? I'm pretty sure he messages that several times a day, but even in person, I hear him say it at least 2, 3 times within a conversation, you know? So
absolutely. You get your goof and my buddy.
yeah, yeah,
I
that's
mean,
exactly.
I hope he's never heard us say that and think we're ever saying, not that it would bother him because he's George,
Yeah.
but a lot of wrestlers, you'll listen to him talking, they'll be like, all right, my buddy. And we're all paying that little nod to George because he outside of the ring is just such a personality, and he's so sweet and kind, but he's also just hilarious being himself, that
Yes.
he truly has so much charisma that it oozes out into like who he is as a person outside of the ring. It's fantastic.
No, I totally agree with you. I make it a point that it doesn't matter what show I'm at, what promotion, if George is there, and even if I saw him the day before,
Yep.
I'm going to walk up and say hey to him, because there's always that little interaction, and he loves me. So like I'm like,
Oh,
why
absolutely.
not, right? Like yeah, George is amazing. I love that guy so much, and it's just funny to see him, like especially his heel persona, right? Like he's a lot of face right now, but there's every once in a while where he has to throw on that heel, and it's just so funny.
Oh my gosh. Another minor little George South story was when I did the match for him and Lawler. They were telling me, and don't get me wrong, I love Lawler. I respect all he's done in the business. I grew up watching him on commentary, so even outside of the ring, really just admiring him as an entertainer. So one of my first big matches was I got to do big time wrestling, and I got to referee the George South Jerry Lawler match, which was on the same card as the FTR Rock and Roll Express match, and it was so cool. That was actually the first and only night I met Edge as a worker, and it was the single greatest night of my life. And outside of that, when they told me, they came up to me and they were like, "Hey, the other referee isn't going to be able to do this show because he didn't get licensed for South Carolina in time. and they want to give Jared a break before that main event for FTR because they know it's going to be good. They know it's going to be something that really is historic. So would you be willing to do George South and Jerry Lawler? And I still, to this day, from my husband, from Bob Keller, and everybody in between, get made fun of because my genuine response and reaction, because I love George so much, was I get to referee a George South match. It was not about Lawler for me. And I love Lawler. It was such a cool experience for him, especially growing up watching him. But my reaction was to get more excited about George. And I don't even think George knows that story, by the way. But that match, uh, he was so mean to me in the ring, but like before, after, and everything in between, he's always been so sweet. So like when he is that heel character, he is. And so when we were in the ring, I loved Lawler leaned over and whispered to me at one point, he's going on with this promo, just like on and on. And Lawler goes, "Does he ever stop talking?" And I was like, and that like back and forth was going on as he's giving his promo before that match too. So again, just George being George, but
oh yeah, George's heel definitely has like the longest heel. Like I'm gonna just
promos of all time.
this mic. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure I've yelled many a times at George, be like, "All right, man, we got to start fighting." Like, yeah. That is great. So, because you are a ref, I have a couple of extra questions that we like to throw you guys' way. So, you know what? I think I might have skipped the question. I did. So we're gonna throw this one back in first, and then we'll move forward. So, who is your favorite person to wrestle?
I'm not gonna be Chance Riser about it, but I will say I do have. I'll approach this question twofold. Part one is that as far as like actually being my opponent and wrestling, there are always three women that stand out to me when I've gotten to be in the ring with them. I first and foremost I will never give the appropriate amount of flowers to Caitlin Marie. Caitlin Marie is a phenomenal talent and entertainer, and anybody she gets in the ring with, she will pull the best match out of them that they can have for where they're at in their journey as far as training goes. And Caitlin also doesn't sugarcoat things. So she will be the first one to tell you if something sucked or if you're not bringing your A game. She will not allow you to bring that to her matches. And I admire both the person and the performer that she is, because she truly is a phenomenally talented entertainer. Lexi has also been super, super monumental in helping me grow in my talent. A lot of my first matches were with Lexi, and Lexi has gone out of her way to try to pull some of those great matches out of me for where I'm at, understanding that Ric Flair's wasn't Ric Flair as we know him in his first match. And that wrestling is a very imperfect sport. And when you start, you have to accept your first 10, 20 matches are not going to be WrestleMania matches. And me being a perfectionist, that's really hard. But I think Lexi has been an amazing opponent. And I've enjoyed a lot of the matches that I've had with her. And then the last person I definitely want to bring up as far as opponent would be Clara. I love her ability in the ring. I think she's underappreciated, especially for her work as a heel and just how much old school talent she has. And she just cares about this business so much. And I think that passion bleeds through and allows you to have really fun matches with her. But Claire is another one of those people who just does not tolerate in front of the curtain or behind it any BS. And it's one of the things that makes me love her as a person and also love her as an opponent. I think that she's not going to allow you to bring less than what you can, but she's also not going to rake you over the coals for not being perfect at it the first go around. And so every time I've gotten to step in the ring with those three women, I am incredibly thankful. The second part of that is I love wrestling with, of course, the OG squad. Anytime Jasmine and I have gotten to wrestle together, even just Keith and I getting to do our Chester match, that one-off that we did, or the times that I've gotten to even just do promos or come out the curtain with the OG squad is some of the most fun I've had in wrestling. I also have enjoyed. I got to tag at, for a OSCW beach show. My debut as a wrestler for OSCW, since I had ref for them previously, was with Sadie Lee Moss and with my husband Cooper, and I loved every moment of that match. It was so much fun, and Sadie's just hilarious to be around in the ring and outside of it. So as far as like wrestling with, I enjoy being with those people in the ring, even if they're not my opponents. Being with them in the squared circle in whatever capacity that is always, it reminds me why I love wrestling.
That's awesome. No, so Caitlin, Lexi, and Clara are three people that I'm working to try to line up on this show as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like your list is awesome. I mean, they're all people that I know of and have seen, and I totally agree. I've seen Caitlin wrestle in so many different matches, and in every match, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like the best match I've seen her in. And then I say that again at the next match. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. She is so entertaining. All right, so before I give you the last question, our really kicker question, I got a couple of ref questions for you. So what kind of match is your favorite to ref? Is it more like the standard wrestling match, or are you a fan of like the gimmick matches?
The gimmick matches, from like a, people don't realize how much we have to do as referees. There's like 45 things I'm thinking about while I'm in that squared circle to try to add to that match from a referee standpoint. From making sure I'm really paying attention to every aspect of where the shoulders are, making sure I'm really counting and even a fair pace, paying attention to what's going on in the ring. I'm not getting the wrestler's way. I'm keeping everybody safe. Like, they're really, if you're going to be a decent referee, even halfway, there's like a million and one things we're thinking about in there. So as far as like a challenge to really contribute to a match, um, your normal rule, regular, degular matches are the ones where I really get to hone in on the like rules of it all, of adding to that match in that way. So from like a, the talent that it takes to be a referee, which some people don't think it does, but I think to be a good referee, to be a Jessica Carr, to be an Aja, to be Jason Ayers, to be a Jared or a Spencer, you really do have to have a talent that you've either built or that you naturally come with. I love a regular match, just a regular, degular, like singles match or whatever, because it gives me the ability to exercise my physical cardio, my focus, all those things. The gimmick matches, I love from like a fan standpoint, but as far as being a referee, my job is a lot more simple. So I'm still watching for safety. I do have to watch a little more closely, especially in matches where there's blood and all that other good stuff. But most of my job in those matches is be like, no, don't stop. Like I don't get to really like challenge myself in that way. Like I have to be present and I have to worry about safety in a whole new way. I've only had to throw up the ref X a couple of times, so there is like that fear. But outside of like the safety concern aspect of it, I don't have as much challenge because there's no rules. So I can contribute in like, holy crap, please don't die sort of ways, but there's not much I can do to actually like challenge myself as much as in your regular match. So
I got you. I feel like if when I get Hunter on here, I feel like Hunter would definitely say the gimmick matches, because let me tell you, man, like when Hunter is reffing, her expressions are off the chain, and I love it every time.
I think, and this is not dogging her, I think it's just different styles of refereeing, because people think there's different styles of wrestling, but they don't realize there's different styles of referees.
Oh, there's so much.
He has very similar shock and awe as like Aubrey Edwards and a lot of
Yes.
people who are like big. Like, to me, that's just not my style personally. And you won't see me do it. Sometimes I'll have a legitimate reaction, like it's not me putting it on. It's like, oh crap, like, are you good? Like, um,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just me not being able to like hide my face. But for me personally, I look at it like the way that Jared taught me, because he
Yeah.
is like the person who ref trained me, is like, um, we are the law enforcement in there. We are police officers. And to me, if a police officer came up to me and was like over exaggerated in that way, I would not take you seriously. I would drive my car away. Like if a police officer came up to me and was like, I don't I'm done. Like, you clearly don't even take you seriously. I'm out. So, and that's as like a very rule following person. So, like, again, I'm not dogging her or anybody else for what they do. I'm not dogging Aubrey. It's just, it's not my style personally.
No, and I had mentioned, like, the first time I spoke to you, I had said to you, I was like, I love the way you ref because it reminded me of Jerry. And that's when you told me that, you know, he trained you, and I was like, I can so see it.
Yep.
Because yeah, I like both styles of the ref style. Like my least favorite is like you know, the goofy refs, like the ones where they don't count properly, and like
Oh,
the ones you want to just yell at all the time. And but yeah, like the ones that are over the top with the reactions, and then the serious refs like you and Jared. I'm like, I love both of those styles because they have their place in the
yeah,
different matches.
absolutely.
So yeah, no, that's awesome. So all right, so we got that one. I want to say that might be my only one that's really ref based because the other ones are still like every ref would probably have a Ricky and George story. Yep.
Of course. Absolutely.
And yep, they all travel, so they got to eat. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's really, I think that's the only question that kind of truly differs from a wrestler and a ref
Yeah.
is that one aspect of that. And then of course for the ref style, it's like who do you like to work with as a ref? Like, is there someone better to work with than others based on, you know, who listens well and, you know, where, how well you guys can play off of each other. But for you, I asked the wrestler version of that one because I like that question better for the wrestlers.
Well, also, as far as like training and stuff, like I said,
Yeah,
I'm very fortunate and blessed to learn from, even just in conversations with Jessica Carr,
yeah,
um, Jason Ayers, Jared, Daniel Spencer from OVW and TNA, and like just some amazingly talented people. So in my mind, I've gotten to work with some of the best referees in the world. So
yeah.
um, I feel like I really have learned from some of the best who do what they do. So
That's really cool.
I don't, and they all have different styles on things. So I'll take something to Jason Ayers and be like, psychology wise, what do you think about this? Because it never occurred to me as a referee, we have to, like, we also have psychology that we have to think about.
Yeah,
And people don't realize that. But Jason's answer might be different than Jared's answer. And same for Jessica versus Daniel. And so it's always really interesting to me to get to hear the different feedback. And each one of them is super humble and being like, that's just the psychology I subscribe to. That's just the way that I do it. It's not wrong in the other ways. That's just the way that I prefer it.
yep. No, I'm totally with you on that. All right, so time for the big question.
Yes.
What would be if you could only watch one match for the rest of your life? What would that be?
I have this locked and loaded. It is WrestleMania 22, Edge versus Mick Foley. That match, from a storytelling standpoint, will always stick with me. Actually, on my first date with my husband, that was the WrestleMania 22, Edge versus Mick Foley, is what I made us watch because I love that match, from the storytelling to the promos and the like the build up to that road to WrestleMania to the ending of that match with the blood coming out Edge's face and even in his eyes. Like, the seriousness of the way they told that story was top to bottom. Just, again, even though I am not a hardcore wrestler, I think everybody in the business is tough for doing what we do because not everybody can get through the training of it all and all that. Um, but I am a baby in the sense that I do not love hardcore. You can throw me into a door, but please God no. With majority of the other stuff, the light tubes are a hard no for me. No barbed wire, no thank you. No thumbtacks. I Someone told me one time, they were like, the thumbtacks only hurt when they come out, and I was like, you act like they don't have to. I'm not gonna leave them in there. Like, I no. And so I'm not a hardcore galley, and for the women who are tough enough to do it, I'm the comedy girl. Okay, I bring personality to wrestling. I'm not the Lucky Ali of it all, Mr. Athlete. Oh my gosh, I am not. I'm not the hardcore galley, the GCW girl. Um, but I respect the people who can do those things. I bring the personality. Y'all can have the other stuff. But when people can put themselves and truly put their bodies aside and that mental block and go there to tell a story like that match, I admire it through and through. So because I'm so not that person in wrestling, I think that's why I appreciate it so much when I see matches like that. and I could watch it every day for the rest of my life and never get tired of it. I think it's just every part of the storytelling was there for me.
No, I'm totally with you there. If I was ever to wrestle, I'm like, you know, I mean, I would probably like. I think I could do a cage match because it's just a cage, right? And I've seen the way a lot of that works, and I'm good with
Yeah.
that. But yeah, no barbed wire. I mean, I've growing up in North Carolina, I've been around that enough to know that I don't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
glass. Like, I mean, Darby going through that glass on Sting's last match, and then they showed his body, and it looked like he just had blood
Uh,
coming out of his pores. I was like, no,
I
sir. And then, yeah,
the
enough
yeah,
GCW.
I saw the gash. They cut to him for a second, and then they went back to Sting. And I definitely think Darby was supposed to do more in the match than he was going to. But
Yeah.
I swear the spot that Sting talked about he needed stitches with, I swear when I was looking at it, and I could 100% be wrong because I was not like privy, I was not that close,
Yeah.
whatever. But it looked like he had glass inside that deep scarring. And one of the reasons they had him do not a lot after that is because I think there's a part where they're clearly trying to not shoot him on that side. And I think it's because it looked like he had moved and then he came back. And I think part of that was they were, if he had something in there, they were trying to get it out so he could get to the end of the match. Um,
Yeah, no, and it looked like they taped him up in certain areas,
yeah.
like, like he had like little like strips of tape, and I was like, oh my goodness. And yeah, I was there, and I saw when like one dude got up and he came back, and I was like, does he have duct tape in his hand? Like,
Uh,
what are they about to do? Like, I was like, oh my goodness, like, yeah. So
yeah.
that was hardcore, but yeah, I'm with you, man. Like the light tubes, I've been to enough GCW shows, and those guys are beasts. They're
Really.
beasts. Yeah.
I in no way am throwing shade because I won't. That I admire that. Like to
Oh
be
no.
that mental block and put on a show for people and truly sacrifice your body. Not that being in the ring in general does not do that, but that's like a whole other level of not only storytelling, but putting your body through it to entertain others. And so I respect it wholeheartedly. I just
Totally.
cannot really participate.
No, I'm with you. My kid, my little one, Rome, he's actually he just had his second wrestling training. He's 10, so he's working towards being an amateur wrestler. It's Zuka King and Dave Dawson's fault. He
Awesome.
loves those guys, and they play around with them all the time. And one day he was just like, "Dad, this is what I want to do." And I was like, "All right, man, I'm totally supporting you." But one of the funny things with him is he's a big George guy. Every match before George gets in the ring, he takes a picture of George's face. And he's
Yes.
like, and then I'm gonna get an after shot because because George, like, you could put up a calendar by it. It's kind of like Kobe jumping off of stuff. It's George bleeding, right? How many
Yeah.
days has it been since George has bled? Like,
I will not get over his match with Nick Gage and him just being like, I got grandbabies. Like at WrestleCade. I think about that's like to me when I think of hardcore George, I think of him being like, come on, man, I got grandbabies at WrestleCade. Like that for me, I was so invested in that match, which is again why I just like I admire it so much. But especially for George, because like George is such a like personality when he just wrestles in general. So the fact that he's willing to be like hardcore George at this point in his career, I think is again just a testament to him and who he is.
yeah, I'm toughest old man that I can think of. I
I,
mean, I always used to say that my grandpa was a really tough guy because when he grew up, like he grew up in Guyana, and he was a rice cutter, and rice cutters are some of the hardest jobs you can have. But then like I would stack him up right next to George because I watch George on a monthly basis right now go through some of the most craziest matches and bleed all over the place. And then 5 minutes later, he's like, you want to buy a pitcher? Like, I mean, I'm like, dude, you just went through everything and you're like, nothing happened.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh man, he's so amazing. Yeah. Gotta hand it to him on that stuff.
Side note, I also have family. My sister's husband is Guyanese, so I'm familiar
Nice.
with Guyanese culture a little bit.
That's cool. Yeah, yeah. So I'm half Guyanese and half Trinidadian. So yeah, my dad's from Trinidad. Yeah, so that's really neat. Yeah, so you know what's going on there. Yeah, those guys
Yeah,
are they are wild, and I love it. Right, they can definitely go on another level.
Yeah.
So last thing, because we I'm like you, we definitely tangented it a little there, but where can everyone find you?
So, I have 3 platforms on social media. I have Katrina Krize on um, Twitter and or X now, sorry, on
Yeah,
on Facebook, and then I have official Katrina Krize on Instagram. And currently, because I'm pregnant, I'm not as active. You're not going to see me at shows and stuff like that unless I'm with my husband or the OG squad. But I will post on those platforms whenever that changes. So definitely keep an eye out.
definitely. And then you also wrote a book.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
thank
And
you.
you have a page for your book, don't you? Like an author page, I
It
believe.
is under my shoot maiden name. So it's author Gail Hazelden.
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes you'll hear people either call me Katrina Krize, which is my wrestling name, or um, Gail Hazelden, or Housley now, but
Yeah.
um, Gail because that's my shoot name.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think I haven't read your book. I'm not a big book reader because I'm Indian. I was forced to read a lot as a child, so I don't read a lot, but I have read a lot about what you've done, and I think it's very brave of you to release a book like that. So I definitely I was waiting to see you in person, but it might be a bit. So I figured this is close enough.
Yeah,
But no, I really respect that you put out a book like that. So
thank you.
yeah,
It was hard, but I also felt like I went for I'm a big proponent of like if I go through something, if I can help at least one person feel less alone through going through that thing, then I want to share that. And so the book was really just me having an experience with my second abuser and in grad school, and I felt so alone during the time, and so I tried to write it like a conversation that you would have with a friend, so that when someone's reading it, if they're also going through that, they could feel like they were less alone in their experience. And I have been blessed, even for people who haven't gone through the Title IX process specifically, for people who have been abused. I have a lot of people in wrestling who were helped from my book, and I that is the biggest compliment to anything I could put out, that not only someone would care enough to buy a different form of my art outside of wrestling, but also that they were touched by it or helped by it. And so, yeah, I'm super proud of it. The joke behind the scenes is that I do 101 things and I have no chill. And so, from my shoot job in healthcare to my work as an author, I'm actually working on a kid's book right now that should come out this year. From that to wrestling and everything between, I just have 101 passions and I'm equally passionate about all of it. So, my, I just don't want to get to the end of my life and not have done 101 things and be that grandma.
no, I totally that's awesome. No, and that's great to hear that it's helped people because I mean I feel like that's definitely the most awarding part of something like that. I mean, you put your story out there and you're letting people know that hey, you're not the only one, right?
Yeah.
So no, that's great to hear. Especially I know there's a lot of that in the wrestling community where you hear about people's stories all the time and it's amazing what everyone's trying to overcome. And yeah, to just know that you have someone else in their shoes with you, it does help. So yeah, I'm happy about that. I will definitely make sure that I throw a link in our page to your book, which I know I know it's on your Facebook. So I'll grab that and make sure I throw it in the video. So for
That's
sure. Thank you very much for being with us tonight. This is a late one for us for sure,
yeah.
and we will we'll always stay in touch and yeah, so thank you very much again. I hope everything goes well. I look forward to seeing some pretty pictures of
Thank
that
you.
baby at some point soon. So I know we got a little bit of time, but still
Yeah.
yeah, looking forward to it. So tell Coop I appreciate him letting me have you for this late, and yeah, I'll definitely have him on at some point soon. So
He's
have a
looking.
great night and we'll talk
Thank
later.
you
Thank
too.
you. All right. Bye.